I'm a lifelong Utahan, so love the state of Utah, and I really enjoy the ability to be able to make impact in all of the areas that I've been able to have my career. So I actually started out as a patent attorney years and years ago. I have a chemical engineering degree, law degree from the schools here in the state, and spent about 10 years practicing law, and decided that it wasn't worth killing my soul. And so I totally was reborn again somehow and moved into tech, and I did ed tech. I was a CEO of a HR tech company, and currently doing a lot of startup type projects. I have a consulting business now called Enablement. And along this whole journey, I've also grown the Women Tech Council as my passion project, my way to give back. And so just to be clear, it's not my full-time job. I think some people think I've been doing that for the last 10 years as I've not been able to make a living at it yet. But it has been an amazing effort, and there's so many great things happening. One of the reasons I've actually been here in the southern Utah area the past month or so is that we do have a project coming down here, so I'll tell you a little bit more about it. So without further ado, I was asked to talk about activating influential networks. Now, when I started out as a patent attorney, I got in and I was like, I want to be a rainmaker. Like, teach me how to bring in these big clients, teach me how to do this. Now, it turns out there are very few women patent attorneys. And it was really hard to find somebody to mentor me and teach me how to network and how do you do those sorts of things. And so interestingly enough, Women Tech Council, growing up for the last 10 years, has taught me a lot about how do you actually do deal flow. And I've worked on multi-million-dollar deals and been able to bring them in now. But it's actually by applying these skills through this Women Tech Council effort that I've been able to hone some of those skills. So I'm going to share some of those things that I've learned along the way. Just know that in my personal professional life, a lot of this applies to my business side, to the stuff that I do every day to do deal flow or to grow my business or to grow my companies that I've been in. So I guess I just want to be clear, it is not a women in tech conversation, because I do know there's a panel later about that. But I do want to share and use Women Tech Council as an application so you can see how it sort of played out, so that it's a real life example for me. So when I think about activating a network, the young version of me used to think I've just got to have a lot of contacts. I need to know how to network. I need to build this network. If you have a network, you can do anything. And the thing that I've learned along the way is I believe there are these phases that you go through. Right? When you first start out, you are learning to grow your network. You're collecting contacts, essentially, right? So kind of the hallmark of building a network phase is you start to build your Rolodex. That's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. Is there a laser pointer? I just want to see if this will point to laser. Maybe not. I just killed it.
It does have a pointer.
Like this. You mean the arrow is the pointer? Okay. So I view this as a spectrum. So, right, initially you're going to build a network. You sort of have to do that to be able to activate one. Then you sort of go through this phase of learning how to leverage a network. So that might be where you start to understand, how does deal flow happen? How do I start to grow my business? And it really looks like outreach, but I think of it as sort of a one-on-one exercise. Activating a network to me looks a little bit different. It has this sense of scalability. So, for example, this event is, one evidence of an active network that's scaling, right? There's ways to plug lots of different people in, so people will show up, and they'll show up in large numbers. So I really view when you hit the activating the network part of it, you have hit a level of scalability, and you've been able to build whatever infrastructure, whatever programming, where people are willing to show up and engage. So just know that when I'm talking for the rest of the presentation, I'm really talking about this activation part. There's lots and lots of skills on how do you network and things like that, but I don't really want to spend a ton of time on that. So what does it look like? So I just kind of want to use Women Tech Council as an explanation. Remember earlier in my career, I'd show up to networking events, super uncomfortable, and usually one of the only women in the room, and I thought it was about, exchanging business cards. And it just, doesn't really even look anything like that, right? So this is not what we're talking about. And loved, by the way, the networking going on at lunch. Sorry, I had to be a buzzkill and had to get completely silent. I was like, no, keep going, great things happening. So what we're really looking at is activation behaviors. So I sort of sum this up in three main things, which is, I got used to two. They show up, with you when they could be somewhere else, right? In my world, with Women Tech Council, so there's something about having the word woman in the name, right? It takes a lot of extra effort for me to get people to show up because I know they're busy. I know they're busy CEOs, they're busy executives, right? So I've got to be really thoughtful about how to get people to show up with me when they obviously could be spending their time elsewhere. They allocate resources to you when they could be spending them elsewhere. And they open up opportunities to you when they could be giving them to someone else. So you want to think about what are these evidences that you've really activated your network, right? And these are the 3 things that I see show up time and time again. Let's see, maybe I need to point at this computer. There we go. Okay, so to me, it really generates the cycle of abundance when you've hit that level. You're able to create lots and lots of collisions, so that's what's happening here, right? You're engaging with a lot of different people, a lot of opportunities happening. There's these little interactions happening that are going to develop into something larger eventually, if you keep them sticky, if you keep people coming back again and again, so that you can continue to have those dialogues that actually generate opportunity. The other thing that happens is you have lots of resources and talent. This allows you to have impact. And then you have constant opportunity flow, right? So this is where the abundance is created. You create this really virtuous cycle. And the interesting thing is you don't create it just for yourself, you create it for everyone. So when an activated network results in people creating deal flow without you involved, that's pretty amazing. I keep looking at the right. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about Women Tech Council. We've got a very strategic focus around visibility, mentoring, networking, and opportunity. And we wanted to stay very focused on these, and interestingly enough, these have not changed over the last 10 years. Because we're very clear on what is the outcome that we wanted to have with this organization. So I'll show you a little bit about what that looks like with some examples. So in 2016, we had almost 8,000 people show up to events. We had 26 events. It was kind of a dizzying year considering I don't really get paid to do that. But across all of our programs and events, we had 8,000 people come and support this idea that women in tech are a really important part of our economy. And those events, were sort of all over, and I'll talk a little bit more about what we do at those. We have 10,000 high school girls that have gone through our She Tech program. So the girls are showing up, the educators are showing up, and the industry people to mentor them are showing up. We are the GoEd's technology cluster leaders, so they don't have a director anymore, so they've asked us to support that role. We also are strongly supporting the Talent Ready Utah launch that was formed. I sit on the Talent Ready Utah committee, and we're really interested in how do we connect education and the industry to fill the talent pipeline issue. So these are just examples, and I'll go through more. We're also expanding into Idaho and Colorado. So obviously we do lots and lots of mentoring. It's a really important part of what we believe we should do. Our big sort of formalized program around that is called the She Tech program. It's all about high school girls. And how do we get them seeing that STEM is interesting, creative, fun, and we engage them with hands-on learning. We also bring lots of industry to the table. So it started about 4 years ago at UVU. It went from like 300 to 600 to 1,200 girls. So now, and it's only 1,200 this year because we maxed out their stadium there. But we have 250 industry people show up to support those girls on that day. That's a pretty amazing effort by the community. But that's what I mean when I talk about activation, right? Getting all of those people in that place to make impact. So this is an ongoing program. And so this is one of the reasons we are in Southern Utah. And we also built an Hour of Code module this last year to support the National Computer Science Week, and it's been plugged into our She Tech program. But another example of activation, we were able to get through 3,500 school kids to go through this module, and then we took all of their images that they created from this Hour of Code, and we created an ad that showed how all their images come together and connect, and then we played it for 6,000 students at the University of Utah, the basketball halftime. And so they were super nice. We're like, how many tickets do you need? They're like, we'll give you 6,000. I'm like, cool. Can we have 6,000 tickets? So we've been able to have some really amazing partners to support these kind of scaled efforts. So these are the She Tech partners that came in with our consortium. And just, this is a shameless plug, May 8th, which I think is only less than 2 weeks away. It's going to be at SUU just up the street. Get your high school girls there. It's for 9th through 12th grade. We've already got about 60 girls registered already, but it's going to be really fun and great. And we're bringing in Adobe and SkyWest and EMC, Dell EMC, and Ancestry to come and support. So we would love the support of local tech as well. So I actually have flyers here if any of you are interested in knowing how to support the event. But we want this to keep growing, and we want it to reach, we just had one at Weber for 400 high school girls, so the state supported this effort so that we could get this statewide and really impact the growth of the girls in our STEM fields. So networking is obviously a critical part. I would say that we probably initially started as a networking organization. However, over the last 10 years, we've been able to grow and expand and do some really interesting impact efforts. But networking is always a key part of any organization that comes together. This screenshot is actually part of a product that we created. It's our Women Innovators exhibit that's at the Leonardo in Salt Lake City. It's a permanent exhibit there. And it highlights 167 women who have been recognized as finalists in the Women Tech Awards. So we've had 10 years of those awards. Every year, 15 to 17 really amazing women, all the way from CEOs and entrepreneurs. We also have Rising Star Awards, and we also have a university level STEM award that we give because we want to show those people the success along that entire career pathway. We also bring about 100 high school students to that award so that they can see these people being recognized. So we've sort of made that permanent in this Hall of Fame in the Women Innovators exhibit, and it's mobile so we can take it anywhere with us that we want. But networking is always a key to what we do and what any organization does. Visibility. So what's interesting is about 10 years ago, and John Richards is in this room. John, you've been an advisory board member from the very beginning, and you can agree or not, but I would say 10 years ago it was a real struggle for people to believe that there were lots of senior level women in Utah.
I was the first man on board.
You were the first man. Well, I will give you that. You and David Bradford, I don't know, you might have to arm wrestle that one out, but but I mean, well, you both can have it. Why can't you both be the first? So 10 years ago, though, the landscape was very different. And when we started pulling people together, we'd often get this comment, whoa, I didn't know that there was this many women in tech in Utah. And admittedly, when we did the first Women Tech Awards, which this is a photo of, this is not the first one, this is the most recent Women Tech Awards. But when we did the first one, it was open nominations, peer nominated. Secretly, Sid and I were like, I don't know, how many years do you think we can keep this going, right? Because are there that many women in tech? I mean, we didn't know. We were just kind of at this beginning of this effort to kind of bring the community together. Every single year we have about 60 nominations, and there's very little overlap. Because the Utah economy has been growing like crazy, which is amazing. So we're also importing a ton of great talent. Companies are coming in and acquiring great companies in the state. So we have been fortunate to be able to highlight amazing new people every single year. And the quality absolutely does not increase year over year. So this is a really important project of ours because it does bring the tech community together in a major way. And then, of course, opportunity. I think, this for me is probably one of the most important ones for me professionally, because one of the things that I wanted to do is create more career and more economic opportunity for the women in this state. It's unfortunate that the state has the reputation that it does. I, along with thousands of other women in tech, have chosen Utah to have a career. And so we want to grow this talent, keep them here, which means that women need to be able to have access to opportunity. They need to have executive roles. They need to be able to start their own companies. They need to be able to create and grow companies that also create more jobs. So for me, opportunity is the key to anything that I do, right? Because I'm always looking out for how do you really make impact in a way that generates this sort of, synergistic is a bad word, but an expansive amount of opportunity for anyone involved. And I do think that the visibility combined with being able to bring these interesting networks together has been able to make an impact there. So we also very much care about the cultures of the tech companies here in the state. Mentorship is great. Everybody wants to put talent and resources into girls in STEM. It's applaudable, and everybody should do it. But what we also find is when women in tech hit industry, they start to hit these unconscious barriers, right? And then you start losing about 40% of women that go into engineering fields. They just leave. So what we want to do is we want to try to tackle it from a couple of different directions, which is let's build a pipeline, keep that going. We also have some university efforts underway as well. But then once they hit industry, we've got to build these cultures that are welcoming and inclusive to women. And where does that start? It starts with the CEO. CEOs always set the culture of their organization. So this last year, we tackled that head on and created a CEO roundtable and got very focused. As you can imagine, these meetings are mostly men. We got very focused around and very direct around what is it that's causing, these cultures where women don't want to come to your company, or you say you're getting low applications. Well, I don't know. I've actually met thousands of women in tech, so let's talk about maybe what might be happening within your organization to cause those low application numbers. So that's been a really interesting effort, and we've brought in lots of leadership to tackle this problem. So I think with any organization, whether it's a startup, whether it's community organization, you have to get very focused about what your mission is. So when I say women in tech, right, there's probably some automatic assumptions that you might think about what the organization is. It might be a networking organization, which it absolutely is. But we got very, very focused in the messaging, and all of the programming that we do is really focused around how women impact our technology economy. Because at the end of the day, we want everything tied to growing tech companies. So, for example, we don't get involved in a lot of women's rights issues, right? There's lots of great organizations that do that. We got approached to support some, like getting more women involved in politics or something like that. We actually don't spend energy on those sorts of things, right? We want to stay very focused because the programs we have, being a volunteer organization, first of all, it's a lot of energy. So we want to make sure that we focus our energy around something that we believe can really make a difference and stay very focused and true to that target. So we very much focus on how do women impact the economy. This includes key partners. If you think about how a tech company grows and runs, right, it requires all of those key stakeholders and also the economic stakeholders, right? So those are the people that we engage in our community. We also do understand as an organization that we have key competencies, and every organization sort of has to figure out what space do they play in. And interestingly enough, the Board of Women Tech Council is actually made up of women entrepreneurs, which is kind of interesting, right? So we don't run like a normal nonprofit. How we approach the way we build the organization is actually more like a startup. We test things. If they fail, we don't do them again. We test them, we iterate, we improve. And so we found that our key competencies are really around platforms, programs, and productization. And so we've been able to create some distinct value, I believe, in the organization and community by being able to be very honed on what is it that we do very, very well. So I'll illustrate what this looks like. So when you think about the economic pipeline, so I've illustrated that right here, all the way from K-12, all the way into leadership and growing companies, we've created platforms over the last 10 years, and all the programs that we have within the organization feed into one of these economic pipeline platforms. Some are more formalized than others, so for example, our SheTech platform has lots of programming within it. Our workforce platform has some programming, and we are formalizing our university platform as well this year. So that's the way we think about our organization and the way that we're able to tie into the economic value of the state. And as a result, what happens is we end up engaging lots of different types of stakeholders. So you can think about, our K-12 efforts are educators, and industry, and typically people within the tech company that really care about giving back, right? But our CEO leadership level is C-level, it's CEOs, it's government leaders. So that community looks very different within our organization because we're tackling and we're discussing very different things that we want to be able to impact. And we've been able to engage some really great industry partners along the way. We've been very fortunate with that. So applying it to maybe some of the things that you are working on, I very much think of my Women Tech Council efforts as a founder. So, I started it 10 years ago. I still feel like I am one of the original evangelists of what we do. So as a founder, I think about what are the 4 things that you can do to really activate your network. So I've broken it down into strategic passion, open community, diversified value, and emotional engagement. I'll give you an example of each one of those. So your job as a founder is to ignite passion. And I think of strategic passion though, right? Because a lot of people come to me and they say, I want to do women in tech because it's the right thing to do. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. That's actually, for me, that doesn't resonate with me, right? Because I'm a business person and I've been a CEO. And if I think about what a CEO needs, he needs everybody engaged within, or she needs everybody engaged in their organization and helping and growing the company. So when I think about the place of women in tech within a tech company, it's not because it's the right thing to do. It's because women bring value, they bring talent, they bring resources, they bring different perspective, right? So the messaging when I'm talking about why are we so passionate about why women belong in tech, is because we actually want our companies to perform better. And research has borne that out. The data's there. It's a no-brainer. But it still needs to be elevated within the conversations of how do we run and build and grow tech companies. So when I think about passion, I'm just as passionate now as I was 10 years ago, but it's a very strategic, directed way of exhibiting that passion and then plugging people in ways that they're also passionate about. Inclusion absolutely matters. So I could not be up here talking about women in tech and an organization I built without also modeling this value for myself. So I'd often say, women networking with only women is actually not diversity. You think about that for a minute, right? Every career decision that I've had, there's been a man involved. Every career and job opportunity. So inclusion matters, anywhere that you go. So the way we think about this in Women in Tech is, if you look at a tech company, our membership is not just women software engineers. It's how do you make a tech company successful? It takes the CEO, the CMO, the finance, legal, HR, sales, product, marketing, all these different roles. So we're very inclusive in that way. We're also inclusive in the roles, right? So we don't just want the up-and-coming person, we also want the mid-person and the executive and the CEO to be engaged. We also really value men's engagement. And from the very beginning, so John was maybe our first advisory board member, we've always had about 30% men on our advisory board. And we openly and actively welcome men within our circles. And so inclusion always makes a difference, and it's something that we've been able to model within our organization. This also means that, I lost the punch of that whole graphic. This also means that there is not one size that fits all. So I can't create a program and expect everybody to sort of plug into that and fit into it, right? So we're very thoughtful about how we look at the different people that are engaging with us, understand what it is that they need or want out of their engagement with us. And trust me, again, we sort of have to work a little bit harder, right? Because women is in our title, but we've learned a lot over the last 10 years about how do you structure events, or how do you create the right call to action or the right value proposition so that people will actually spend that time with you, engage with you, which means that we have to create lots of diversified opportunities. We have to open up lots of doors for people in a lot of different ways, and it won't always look the same. And then lastly, you want to engage people at the emotional level. So when I think of impact, I think about things like this. When our mentors come to SheTech, I want them leaving feeling like that time was well spent. I loved spending time with those high school girls during that day. I loved seeing their brains light up when they were doing the tech challenge, right? That's an example of the emotional engagement that I would love. We've had people we have a live pitch competition next on May 2nd at our talent summit, and these executives will get up and they'll pitch for why they're the best company for women in tech. And I'll always hear these stories how they went back to their company and they said, oh my gosh, we need to do better. That to me is emotional engagement, right? It didn't just end at the stage. That engagement lasted even past that event. So those are the things that I sort of like hearing and understanding What is the engagement even after the events that you have? And I think those are signs of an activated network. So just to sum it up, when you're building networks, when you're building organizations, companies, and you want these outcomes, you need deal flow or you need growth to happen, you're really looking at exercising your influence and activating people, right? You're looking at making sure there's passion behind what you're doing, understanding the community, creating value, and then that engagement. So that's the way I think about our network. I'm happy to answer any questions, although I don't even know if my time is up, which is totally fine too. 5 minutes. Okay, happy to answer any questions. Remember SHUTEC, May 8th, SUU. Flyers right there. Yes?
I've heard, and I don't know who I heard it from exactly, I can't remember, but that Adobe, is not expanding as much as they used to. We haven't found a long here today with us, but because of lack of diversity in these areas, and that's one thing holding them back from being more people in this area. Is that true? What do you know about that?
I've also heard that. And I think that's a great point to point out, because it goes back to when I was making that statement, like, I support women because it's the right thing to do. Well, no. It's okay to be a tiny bit Machiavellian about this, right? Because if Adobe and Lehigh is actually being told by corporate HQ in San Jose that they actually can't grow another site because they're not putting enough effort into diversity, that actually impacts our economy, right? That actually impacts our ability to have people within our own state have jobs. So there's absolutely a business case. And I remember this, so I told you I was a lawyer in a former life. And I used to tell the shareholders, I'd say, okay, so let me think about this. 25% of the general counsels of the major top companies are women, which means 25% of the decision makers are women who are choosing us. And they're, if I think about my experience, they're leaving law because they didn't love it, right? So there's probably some feeling that they have about who they pick as a lawyer, as a law firm, because they don't have to use the firm that they went to, right? So Chevron years ago actually did a diversity scorecard across all of their law firms. And they just axed like 80% of the law firms because they didn't have enough diversity. And the reasoning behind that was Chevron said, we are a global company. I need people that can understand global issues. If you have a homogenous workforce that are solving my global problems, my confidence in that ability to solve that problem is lessened, right? So that was years ago in the legal industry, but it came to a point where it actually started to hit people's bottom line, right? Oh my goodness, my clients actually care about this. And that's what we're seeing is more of the executive leadership within tech, because it's such a hot topic right now. Unfortunately, we hear about the Uber stories. Those aren't interesting to me because they happen a million times. There's so many stories like that. Just take my word for it. I've heard thousands of stories like that over my time. And it's unfortunate. But I do believe if leadership can get on board and start to make the change, that's where we start to make the impact. Because women by themselves can do nothing about it. Yes, Shirley?
So building on the women question for just a moment, you said that you're doing these CEO roundtables. What is one of the solutions that has come out of those for tech companies to help change the culture for women within their companies that we might be able to learn from in our community to help grow women in tech here?
That's great. Great question. So over the last year, we have actually worked on solutions, because what's really important to CEOs is they just don't want to be lectured to. They want real solutions. So we actually created an inclusion framework. And so what the inclusion framework does is it ties an economic study that we did about 2 years ago of the women in tech in Utah, asking them, what do they look for? What do they want? From their lens, what are they looking for? Because I'll tell you, it's always interesting to me, how many times organizations, even ones that I belong to, want to do things for women, and then they actually never come ask me my opinion. I'm always like, really? How do you know the answer? This is strange. But so our data, the inclusion framework was tied to data that was based on survey data from our own membership, and kind of the lens of, okay, if you're going to hire a senior woman at your company, what are they looking for? So the inclusion framework is very quantified. So it takes you through, I believe it was 7 sections, sort of a hierarchy, and it asks you very, very binary type questions. So then you can take that, we took it and quantified it into an inclusion scorecard. What we also measured was their perception of how their company is. Because what's interesting is, I do believe there are thousands of companies in Utah that are amazing at hiring white men, right? They're very good at it. And so sometimes their perception is, I'm amazing at hiring. So then you take their perception and then you put the lens on of what is a woman actually looking for in their organization, and sometimes you find a gap, right? And so unless you're really aware of your own perception gap, I think that's when change, you're like, oh wow, I didn't know that. Oh, okay, well, what do I need to do to start, making that change? So it provides a very quantified way for them to start understanding, because culture is, there's one definition of culture, which is, this is how things are done in our company. That is how culture is created, right? So then you start to look and say like, okay, well, these are the things, and they're very concrete, they're very quantifiable, and you can start to say, okay, I'm gonna start working on this, and I'm gonna start working on this, and then this, and this, and this. So, all building up into creating the right reputation for your company. Thank you so much.
So Sarah's got handouts. Notice those. All right, well, it's my pleasure to begin the introductions for our next panel.